All right, first legacy video after bans. Let's go. We're excited. You want me to play one of the new broken decks? I'm sorry. You just want me to play Suppression Field because it beats Nadu? Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. Now, in case you haven't kept up with the news, Vexing, Bauble, and Psychic Frog are now banned in Legacy. So the Mystic Forge decks and the various Blue-Black X decks that were playing Psychic Frog have been nerfed a little bit. And Matthew gave me a Dealer's Choice donation deck list, and I'm going to use that to do something that you all have been fervently asking me to do in the comments, and that is play Suppression Field. Now, as a quick note here, if you have a deck that you want to see on the channel in this post-ban world, every video description has a link to my website. There is a donation tab that tells you, all the various prices to get a deck on the channel. With the self-plug out of the way here, let's play some White Stompy today. Now, in my conclusion of my previous video, where we played Suppression Field, I said you should probably not play Suppression Field in Legacy, that it has been power crept out of the format. This is a do as I say, not as I do moment, just so we're all clear here, right? Got it? Okay, good. I'm a trained professional. I get to do this. So why Suppression Field? Why now? So there are these really good Mystic Forge decks that are still probably going to be quite strong, that have a ton of activated abilities that are not activated abilities. Think your One Rings, Manifold Keys, Voltaic Keys, Urza's Sagas. This is just going to hit so much shit in a deck like that one. And this is also one of the few cards that can go and hit Nomads in Core and Shuko at the same time. And a lot of times the cards that can hit both of those are just more expensive. So for example, at 3 mana, you do have something like Damping Matrix that you could play that shuts off both, but 3 mana comes down after Nadu does a lot of times. You really need a 2 mana thing if you want to, on both the play and the draw, come down before Nadu can hit play. So the supporting cast here is essentially a handful of hate cards in some variety, a lot of these targeted at spell combo, and a little bit of respect being paid to the various Cloud Post, Ancient Tomb, Planar Nexus, Tron Land style decks that are running around in Legacy right now. The finishers for this deck are going to be Monarch based, which may or may not be a smart thing to do in a world where people are coming back to Orcish Bowmasters potentially. I'm expecting blue-black decks to potentially go back to that card. It's possible that rather than one of these, I should just go and play just Seasoned Dungeoneer and get the show on the road in that capacity. But conceptually, I like the idea of being the pretty princess quite a bit. And if we're running Swords and Jailer and Solitude, we're pretty good at answering large creatures if they do end up slipping into play. As far as our sideboard goes, we're going to target heavily for things like Oops All spells that are running rampant in leagues right now while people are getting their shit together and figuring out what they want to do in the format. We're going to put a little bit of attention on the Mystic Forge decks, and then just have a little bit of extra fair removal in the deck, so that if we want to board out suppression fields, we do have the ability to do so. Note that Stony Silence does have a little bit of blowback on our own artifact mana, but that's probably not the end of the world here. And then I'm playing Lauren, because last league, when I didn't play an out to an artifact or enchantment, we ran into Ensnaring Bridge 2 or 3 times, and it was embarrassing. So this is our attempt to see if we can play something that is a little bit silly and suboptimal in current Legacy without just getting our teeth punched in. And hopefully the answer is yes, as the overall power of the format should have gone down a bit. Folks, if you need any cards for this post-banning world, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. Tales of Adventure is an awesome store. If you're going to be at an in-person event such as MagicCon Chicago, you can also place your order in advance and pick it up on site. Promo code ThrabenU will even save you 5% on your order, and you get free shipping. With that being said, let's battle. If I hit any white card, I have turn 1 Suppression Field, shutting off fetch lands, into turn 2 Archon, which is pretty reasonable. But my Chrome box currently has no white card that I'm super willing to imprint, unless my hand changes a bit and makes me want to turn 1 Archon. I think this is sketchy, but I'm going to keep it. With this specific hand, ooh, Devourer of Destiny. I wish this was a Chrome Mox. Sorry, a Mox Diamond. Now I will probably just want to Archon on turn 1 to make all of my opponent's lands come into play tapped. I'll need a little love off the top. This is fine. Good Suppression Field to fuck with that. Oh, opponent is doing a turn 1 play. Chalice? Oh, that does not do much against me. That's fine. I will immediately draw Swords to Plowshares after saying that, because that's how this game works, but, you know. Mox Diamond! Okay, so Archon on 1? Does Archon on 1 don't take Ancient Tomb damage? Sorry, yeah, let's Archon on 1. Yeah. I might get Wastelanded, but I just have 2 more mana sources here, so I don't actually give a shit about that. I just want to slow my opponent down. And they might not even be able to Wasteland me, at which point I play the Suppression Field and we stare at each other awkwardly before they decide whether or not my spell resolves. Alright, they are going for the Wasteland. I can get Anointed Peacekeeper immediately if I give up Suppression Field, which seems fine. Wait, no. Archon. Well, never mind then. We will Anointed Peacekeeper next turn. Send in for 2. Opponent's at 18. All their lands are going to enter tapped. Oh, they don't have any land. Okay, all right. Hold on. I need to get on my soapbox for a minute. The London Mulligan is the most powerful thing that exists within the game of Magic, and you kept a 1-lander that looked like that. Yeah. I see your shame. Yeah, why do you keep this? Like, you're on the play, you use your Lotus Petal to Chalice of the Void on 1, which is not a game-winning play in Legacy against most decks. That leaves you with only a Wasteland. You either didn't cast a Once Upon a Time or drew a Once Upon a Time afterwards. I don't know about that one. What did the Devourer of Destiny trigger do at the beginning of the game? Did that send every single card to exile? Does not tell me here. Okay. So I would like Path to Exile, Solitude as cards that I bring in here. I have a bunch of stuff that hates on land. I have a bunch of stuff that hates on creatures. Suppression Field targets Wasteland in a meaningful way, but I don't have that many lands that actually can be blown up by Wasteland. So I think I go ahead and do get rid of Suppression Field. Do I play 1 Lauren as a 2/1, or do I keep 1 Suppression Field in respect of Wasteland still? I wanted 4 cards to board in for Suppression Field, but I could only really make it so that 3 fit if I also wanted multiple copies of Stony Silence, which I did want. Suppression Field is very slow on the draw. I'm just going to keep 1, though. This is a double Wasteland hand. This is not going to do it for me. This is not great. So I can keep this, Wasteland my opponent, and Swords to Plowshares their first thing, and believe in the top of my deck, or I can mulligan to 5. I think this is an instance where I believe in the top of my deck because my deck is just so full of cards that are good in this matchup. Basically, everything I draw that is not a land will be good in the matchup. Thank you, deck. Very, very cool. Note that we don't have to hit on that first draw step. We have to hit by the 3rd draw step, I think. Opponent paused in a very awkward way at my end step. I wonder if they have something like a Once Upon a Time that they're going to cast, or a Kozilek's Command that they were considering cycling at 2 mana. Chalice on 0 is fine. I think Chalice of the Void is a card that should have been boarded out fully. Thank you, deck. Very cool. Double mana source. There's Eldrazi Temple into pass. This could mean that Kozilek's Command is coming. I can Palace Jailer next turn. And then we just pass the turn and we see if my opponent makes some spawns here. No. So my opponent had no valid play on 4 mana and kept their hand, which is all a little weird to me. Wasteland's fine. I just let that resolve. My opponent chooses Palace Jailer. Is not surprising. Now I get to do a cantripping Swords to Plowshares. Opponent goes to 24. I pick up another Swords. This is all fine. Deck. I really did not ask for much, but I would like a threat. Opponent has a gajillion mana and no plays. Solitude is fine. It's a little awkward in this exact spot because, like, Ancient Tomb versus Wasteland. So I will just play a basic Plains and pass and intend on casting Solitude later. All right, so we're probably going to see a big Kozilek's Command here. Going for Spawn and Scry. Putting 2 cards on top, so my opponent is going to have 2 bangers for this turn, which hopefully I can answer with Swords on one, Solitude on the other, and then be perfectly fine. Like we are in picked Sowing Mycospawn range. I'm going to lose a land. My opponent gets Gaia's Cradle. Currently produces 6 mana. We're just going to see another one of those, and I just kind of end up outside of range of being able to hardcast this Solitude easily. So there's Eye of Ugin, which is going to be a problem. Do you have a third? Oh no, it's just a preemptive Eye of Ugin activation. Finding another Sowing Mycospawn? Sure. So I'll junk one of those now. This would just be an amazing turn to draw a Palace Jailer. My deck shits itself. My opponent's hand was very bad, but every draw except one this game has been mana for me. I think at this point I just end up losing to Eye of Ugin. I'm still live for 1 turn. So I need to draw Palace Jailer and then Palace Jailer draw a white card after that. I think I am live if that happens. I'll lose another land here. Opponent gets a Blast Zone. I take 4 in combat. There's another Solitude, so I can get rid of one thing to survive for a little while longer, but I think I'm just buried here. Make this small swap and call that good. I have 0 lands in this hand. This is a very, very reasonable mana denial hand. I get rid of 1 Ancient Tomb here, and I should pull ahead in this game relatively quickly. Opponent has revealed a Devourer of Destiny. I'll do a Plains and pass. Devourer of Destiny trigger, sending mana and a Disruptor Flute to exile. Once Upon a Time is fine. Eldrazi Temple. That is fine. My opponent puts an It That Heralds the End into play. I don't actually really care about that body that much. I actually more care about the cost reduction, I think since I'm likely to run into my own Archon of Emeria in terms of multi-spelling, I'm just going to play out the swords immediately, even though I'm not necessarily removing the best creature. So now, hopefully, I just hammer my opponent's lands very hard and just run away with this game very, very quickly. Flagstones are fine. So 2 damage. Opponent returns to 20. All White Orchid Phantom. Take out the Eldrazi Temple. My opponent will probably replace it with a basic. We're floating 2 mana for colorless Eldrazi spells here. Okay, so that is just Kozilek's Command to draw a card. Right, they do have a basic wastes to find. So now I just need to find some other card off the top in the next couple of turns. Gaia's Cradle currently does not produce mana. Lauren is technically some other card off the top, I guess. Send in for 4. Opponent's at 16. We'll go land drop, flagstones, legend rule, just thin a basic plains out of my deck, and play Lauren. No legal targets. All right. Our opponent did not get to play Magic there. What happened with that Once Upon a Time? The Once Upon a Time got them Eldrazi Temple, so they potentially just kept a hand that had no actual mana production. I guess they dig pretty deep, but they sent lands to exile rather than keeping lands that they needed. I wonder if this was a game that they lost to themselves rather than to me. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is just the best place to host your online deck lists, and I don't think it's close. I think it's wonderfully organized, and you can have a great system of folders so that you can go through, separate your decks by whatever you want. I separate mine by format. I have just a few legacy decks, and Moxfield is able to keep track of all the decks that even someone like me makes, so please consider checking them out. Okay. If I draw any white card, I have turn 1 Anointed Peacekeeper, turn 2 Court of Grace, and I'm on the draw. That seems fine. Otherwise, I can potentially stall the game for a little bit with Wasteland or an Anointed Peacekeeper or something. Good old Underground Sea into Tamiyo. Sure. So how do I feel about just jamming Anointed Peacekeeper into Court of Grace versus my opponent's creature? I think that's fine. Give them a chance to daze a Chromox. They do not. I think this is actively the plan. So yeah. Take 2 to Peacekeeper. it gets dazed. Not the end of the world. Like, Court of Grace resolving next turn as a result of that, for example, would be very good. Like, I was mostly hoping to just shut off Force of Will by doing that this turn. That's what I did not want to see, because now my opponent just gets a couple turns worth of clues while I get set up. Chrome Mox does not do me any good here. I'll pass the turn. The fear is now that my opponent sticks a, like, 1-mana creature, such as Nethergoyf, and just has something that can immediately check my Court of Grace. I do have a bunch of removal in my deck that I can draw. That's not the best for me. As long as my next spell resolves, I'm still okay. But flipped Tamiyo is a problem relatively quickly. Like, I think all it takes is ooh, that's nice. Fuck 'em. Wasteland, target Underground Sea. Suppression Field, shut off clues and Tamiyo simultaneously. This is not dazable. Fuck yeah. So, fetch lands, notably, have activated abilities. We may just win this game instantly with Suppression Field. Ooh, basic island. Sure. Yeah, that does not work. Opponent realizes it doesn't work, and cantrips. So hopefully Court of Grace now just resolves and I spiral this game out of control wildly. Ooh, I get to just try multiple turns in a row. That's hot. That's what we came here for. Fuck yeah. Excellent. So now I get a 4/4 Angel every turn as long as I am the Monarch. Alright, my opponent found 2 non-fetch lands, so that's good for them. They are playing a Reanimator variant. So things could get out of control quickly. Hopefully they don't. Now, do I want another Court of Grace, or do I just want to Archon? Both seem great. I think I am going to Archon. I think making my opponent's cantrips worse here is very attractive. Just make it so that they get to play 1 card per turn cycle. It makes my Chrome Mox that I have in hand a little bit awkward, but hopefully I just bury my opponent in Angels at this point. Having Archon in play means that my opponent can't just entomb and reanimate in exactly 1 go in 1 turn. There's your Psychic Frog now. That is a tapped Polluted Delta. Delicious. And it's now my turn. Orcish Bowmasters is a thing that can happen, which I think I can still just easily deal with. I think this is still worth attacking, and I think this is an okay attack too. Alright, fantastic. I believe that I take 2 here to cast an Archon in a way that lets me Swords to Plowshares on my opponent's turn, because we could see Bowmasters here in response to this Monarch trigger. We see Entomb here instead, getting Atraxa. Atraxa is not, like, very good right now. So my opponent will Atraxa. With the Atraxa trigger on the stack, I will just Swords to Plowshares it, and my opponent cannot counter back due to Archon of Emeria. Oh, my opponent is going for Polluted Delta. They need that land. It needs to be a basic or it enters tapped. Yes. Delicious. Holy shit, that Suppression Field was good, though. That was peak. Okay, so I want to be looking at this stuff, probably. I know that that Suppression Field was very good. It is probably correct to just cut it in this matchup, though. Like, this matchup is about not letting my opponent kill me with the large creature that comes out of the graveyard. And Suppression Field does not actually stop that. It does some cool things versus a Tamiyo. That's about it. So this gets me 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll want 3 other cuts of some kinds if I want to max out on Surgical Extraction, which I think I do. My opponent has basic Island for sure. They might not have basic Swamp, based on the timing of their concession. So that's a thing to keep in mind. I could maybe go down on Court of Grace and just focus on the things that disrupt my opponent in some capacity. Court of Grace is just a generic win condition. It is just a card that wins me the game. It draws me towards more removal, which is also relevant. Mox? Do we believe? Almost everything is a good draw, right? Almost everything fixes this hand. A white mana source fixes this hand. Any creature fixes this hand. Any removal spell fixes this hand. We basically just don't want to draw more colorless lands. I think I can keep this, and we'll see where exactly this goes. Basic Plains. Do I lead on that? No, I think I lead on Wasteland, and I make it more awkward for my opponent to surveil land at end of turn if that was their plan. And it seems like it was. We're going to stare at each other for a minute. My White Orchid Phantom is not great currently, whereas that is now perfectly reasonable. So I will Mox Diamond. This is actually quite fun. And then cast Anointed Peacekeeper. Immediate Force of Will. Got no Surd. That's fine. There's still some tension on my opponent's lands. Okay, they do have the basic swamp. They just didn't fetch it last time. There is Entomb. There is Atraxa. I'm going to let my opponent put another thing. Like, I'm going to let them put a reanimation spell on the stack since I have double Surgical Extraction. Just get that extra card out of it. Animate dead. Surgical Extraction. Target Atraxa. Paying 2 life. Opponent's remainder of their hand is quite bad. I'm going to take out... Oh, there's a Grizzlebrand in this deck. What else is notable here? 2 copies of Engineered Explosives, 2 Fatal Push, 2 Tameo, 1 Grizzlebrand, 2 of these bad boys, 2 Shouldred's Edicts. Okay. So opponent has Force of Will, Entomb left. I would like you to cast Entomb, please. Actually, that was a mistake. I should have just White Orchid Phantomed that. Opponent puts Grizzlebrand into the yard, which I can now surgically extract, and then I don't have to worry about the reanimation portion of my opponent's deck. I can also be cheeky and surgically extract Force of Will, but probably just making it so that my opponent never gets to do the reanimator thing is better. Yeah, I'll take 2. Take out Grizzlebrand. Then at this point, I can just convert this into a basic. Oh, my opponent's just fucking done with me. Honestly, fair. Alright, my opponent is probably playing Grixis Control. I am on the draw. I can't play any of my cards other than Swords to Plowshares. I think that one is a clear mulligan. This is fine. I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to get rid of one of my 3 drops, so I have a 2, 3, 4 curve, I think. My deck is roughly 50% land, and Court of Grace would be a really big deal if this is a Grixis Control matchup. I think I am going to get rid of Archon. I think my path forward in this game is very specifically trying to get this to stop my opponent's counterspells so that Court of Grace can resolve. So we'll just Plains and pass. The second Court of Grace is either good or terrible, and we'll see which one it is. Undercity Sewers. Fantastic. So that's something for me to target with White Orchid Phantom. I was slightly worried that my opponent might just lead on basic, which is not happening here. There's a basic. So now I will convert that into another land. This may or may not be getting rid of a critical card with Ponder. So we have made my opponent's mana ever so marginally worse. I get Fatal Pushed. This is fine. Everything is going according to plan. Over my next 2 draw steps, I would, however, like to see another mana source so that I can play Court of Grace. I do get it. Fantastic. So, let's make some peace. To make peace, you do need multiple... Oh! Okay, so this is the illusion of choice here. So there's nothing I can name that shuts off both Lightning Bolt and Sheoldred's Edict. I can't shut off red. My opponent can just fetch and Lightning Bolt. I can't shut off Edict. I guess I can choose what they are taking, like what I'm getting rid of. I guess I name Sheoldred's Edict and make them use Lightning Bolt. Like make them use the more mana efficient one now. And then pass turn and my opponent will Lightning Bolt it. At some point, they might Lightning Bolt it on their own turn. Basic. Alright, now they are gonna just take it out now. Okay. So I know Force of Will exists for Court of Grace. My opponent doesn't have a source of card advantage yet, so things are good in that capacity. My Suppression Field does not matter a lot right now. I think I just play Court of Grace into Court of Grace, let my opponent counter 1 with Force of Will. So yeah, so that's Force pitching Force. So now hopefully I can just stick a Court of Grace next turn. I can't really play it. Oh, if my opponent taps out for a threat, though. So now my opponent's final card is Sheoldred's Edict. So I'm just going to make that more awkward for them. They'll fetch in response. I will, yeah. I will then name that card. They will then use that card at a 4 mana cost to clear my board. And then we are in a top deck war where I have 2 more cards, which is hopefully favorable to me. Baleful Strix is exactly the sort of card my opponent wants to see here. That is very lucky. That is so good against my Archon of Emeria and Palace Jailer as one of my better top decks. So that is a little frustrating in terms of timing. It's such a big difference between 1 and 2 Baleful Strix there, right? Like with 1 Baleful Strix, I could just get to like Palace Jailer my way through this game very, very easily. Grixis Control does not beat the Monarch in most cases. Do I just trade? Do I just trade and try to play Palace Jailer into Baleful Strix? Opponent has 2 unknown cards. Yeah, I think I do. I think this is one of those times where I have to take some risk that one of my opponent's 2 unknown cards is just going to be something like Orcish Bowmasters that hyper punishes me for this. I think I have a narrow window to win this game. Solitude is insane. That is probably one of my best possible draws there. Yes. Sure. Chromox does not do a lot. Actually, Chromox can let me hardcast this Solitude. Am I interested in that? I am interested in that. I have lied. Imprint. Cast. Okay, yeah, and my opponent, recognizing that, they are now on the wrong side of the Monarch, has conceded. That game would have gone on for a few turns, but not in a way that was very favorable for my opponent at all. I feel like we were a little lucky to beat double Baleful Strix, I'm not going to lie to you. So if my opponent is playing main deck Goyfs, probably in multiples, I want these. Suppression Field is probably fine. Suppression Field probably hits Tamiyo, maybe a Jace. Hits clues, hits fetch lands. I think this is maybe a play versus draw thing, where I want all of them when I am on the play, and I want none of them are very close to it when I am on the draw. I don't think it is crazy to play a Miser's Surgical Extraction over the last Suppression Field to hedge against things like Snapcaster Mage, Culligan's Command. Don't think I am going to do it, but I don't think it is crazy. Notably, even if my opponent is playing a pile of basic lands, I don't think I get to board out any White Orchid Phantoms because they just have First Strike in a world where my opponent is maxing out on Baleful Strix. This just has a poor ratio of mana to spells. This second one is fine. So the question becomes, at what pace am I playing this game? Because if I want to Chrome Mox, I am giving to Anointed Peacekeeper on turn 1. I am giving up a real card to do so. This is just going to attempt to resolve Palace Jailer on turn 2 and win the game. Has very little agency if that does not work. I think that's okay. Bloodstained Mire and Ponder. No shuffle. That's not what I'm looking for as a draw. Imprint. Soul Land. Attempt to clear the way for Palace Jailer. Okay. So the Oculus is not on yet. I can take Brainstorm so that my opponent can't respond well to Palace Jailer. But I think I just name Bowmasters so that my opponent can't do that immediately. Alternatively, we do that. Kind of cheeky. That's kind of cheeky. Yeah, I don't hate it. This is a little high risk because sometimes my opponent's top card of library is another land, and I get punished pretty hard for this. It's Lorien Revealed. Okay, so that gets them another land, but they don't have 2 mana immediately for this turn cycle, which is great. Mox Diamond's kind of whatever here. Send in for 3. Opponent's at 16. Hello, Moto. Cast. Cast, Mr. Jailer. Do this thing. My opponent will brainstorm for an answer. Does not find one, so I become the Monarch. Now, this is not going to be, 100% perfect here. There is an opposing Bowmasters. That is something that I might have to worry about. Ooh. Yeah, this is very interesting now. So I can cast an Anointed Peacekeepers immediately and get my opponent to react. I can name Polluted Delta again to continue to keep mana shut off if I would like. I can also just name something like Bowmasters here. And if my opponent plays the Bowmasters now, I will know whether or not, say, an Anointed Peacekeeper is safe for this turn. Okay, yeah, so opponent is going to fetch instead. I'll dismiss this. And I lose one creature to Fatal Push immediately. Opponent's hand is solid. How big is that fucking Oculus? A 5/5? That might be the most immediate problem. That might be the most immediate problem. Let's name the Oculus. This attack now becomes safe. Opponent goes to 13. Kind of where I wish I had an Archon in play. Archon, very, very good against some lines like Tameo plus Bowmasters or Snapcaster plus removal spell. So Orcish Bowmasters probably happens this turn. I can trade my 3/3 for the entirety of Orcish Bowmasters, which is a thing that I don't think my opponent will do. So I think that attack is safe. Palace Jailer attack does not make sense. We'll go ahead and send this in. Opponent goes to 10. Now I get to play an Archon. I really should have played Mox Diamond prior to that, though. Hopefully that does not come back to bite me. So this is where Bowmaster happens. That is going to make me lose the Jailer. I'll get one from this initial ping, another one here. I'm going to save Swords to Plowshares for the moment. I need to protect the Monarch, but I also need to not die to this 5/5. So there's a little bit of tension in what's going on right now. Nobody's coming in, and we're chilling. So K Command is available. Snapcaster Fatal Push is available, but Revolt is not currently on. Awkward. I think I still want to remove this here. All right, no immediate Snapcaster Fatal Push. That's cool. I attack with Anointed Peacekeeper, K Command can finish off this card, and then the Oculus can potentially get in play. I don't like the sound of that. I think I'm going to take 2 damage here, and play this in a way where I leave up white mana, and I think just pass the turn. I'll draw my card. Ah, fuck, it's another Bowmaster. I did not want to see that. Now this token gets very big. I am at 12. I would like to hold the Monarch because I start getting 4/4 Angels. But I'm probably losing both of my creatures this turn. One to combat, and then the other to Culligan's Command. I think I just accept that. I do it this way so that my opponent can't just immediately slam the Oculus this turn. Oculus being a 5/5 flyer versus my 4/4s is a little rough. I think I'm okay if I draw a live spell for my turn, and am very scared if I don't. Yeah. So make a 4/4. I did not draw a live spell. I think I end up getting overwhelmed then. Like, I can put an Angel token in front of this Orc Army token, which is effectively a 5/5, or my opponent can Snapcaster Fatal Push. I think this one is over. I think my opponent's just overall high card quality left me in a bad spot. I wish I had Rest in Peace for this matchup. Okay, so they're going to go for Snapcaster Fatal Push. Yes. This is very bad. I have top decks that can help a lot. You know, I can top deck a Palace Jailer, remove that Orc Army token, become the Monarch again, and be okay. But my opponent has 7 cards, and I effectively have 0 cards. Swords to Plowshare is not great. I am actually just in danger of fucking dying. That had not occurred to me. I've taken more Ancient Tomb damage than I realized. Ponder's fine. That's a land drop. That means the Oculus can also come down here. Bowmaster takes us out as a blocker. Fine. I think I'm going to tap out. Let's go to the next game. Do I want Suppression Fields on the play? Seems like my opponent was operating very well on low resources that game. Probably not. I think I'm going to play 1 Lauren as just a removal spell for Baleful Strix. Again, I wish I had Rest in Peace for this matchup. This is too much removal. I don't think I get to keep this. This is not enough mana. I don't play cards. This is unfortunate. I do not want to be going to 5 in this matchup. Like, I'm totally fine keeping a lot of mediocre 6s and 7s, but this has no plan to win. I don't think getting started on turn 3 is going to be good enough. Yikes. I mean, on 5 I am keeping. But this is incredibly disappointing. I am not going to play Magic this game, in all likelihood. I need just kind of perfects off the top. Land pass. I mean, Ancient Tomb's real good. I would prefer not to just immediately shove Palace Jailer. Like, I would like other things to happen first. If my opponent just has like black mana available off a fetch land that I can't disrupt via Wasteland, it's like super awkward to just play Palace Jailer into that and potentially lose the game on the spot. I'm going to do it anyway, but this is real awkward. I imagine that my opponent has boarded most or all of their counter spells out, so like this is going to resolve, and it's just a question of whether or not my opponent becomes the Monarch in the short term. Ooh, consigned to memory. That's very good. Hopefully I get to just play another one next turn, either with Swords to Plowshares available or Wasteland active. Wasteland is not active. Awkward? Alright. I mean, I cast it. Rainstorm. This is going to transform Tamiyo, meaning that I can attack Tamiyo. But this means that I'm not getting the Palace Jailer exile value that I might have liked. It also means that I'm not getting Bowmastered immediately, though, so like I've got that going for me. Tamiyo flips. Starts with 2 loyalty, so hopefully this all goes the way that I want. Send at Tamiyo. Attempt to kill Tamiyo. Tamiyo does die. That's great. I'll draw my extra card for Monarch. Promox is probably the worst draw in the entire deck. And that is a basic, so my Wasteland does not get any additional functionality. That picks up red mana. Volcanic Island is wastelandable. I have a Swords to Plowshares for something like a Bowmaster that is played out. Or a Baleful Strix, same deal. And Ponder. Very fast shuffle. See if opponent even wants to play out that Volcanic Island. Yeah, they do not. I mean, like, yeah. Ooh, there are some Force of Wills left in the deck. So my opponent is going to want to attack with this and become the Monarch, so I think I can just attack with both of my copies of Palace Jailer here. Yeah, so I do get the damage through. Solitude would be a sick draw here. I think I would cast that. Oh, yeah. I think this is fine. Just not let my opponent draw those extra cards. My Grixis opponent getting access to extra cards is not good. It's possible I am supposed to let them draw 1 card, slow roll it, and try to use both Solitude and Swords to Plowshares as functional cards. Sure. White Orchid Phantom. I really wish that I had 1 more actual factual white mana here. I might Wasteland Bulk and then blow up my own land here. I think there are going to be times where I will want additional white mana, like where 3 white pips in a turn actually matters. Now I'll draw a card. That's not what I want. I will Wasteland Volcanic Island, though. So now we just try to ride this out until I draw a removal spell for the Goyf. Edict is fine. Get rid of a Palace Jailer. I can't trade with this. I will block with another Palace Jailer. This one has flying in first strike for something like Baleful Strix that's played out. Peacekeeper's kind of whatever. I think I will take 2 so that I can spike a Swords to Plowshares and play it. Lightning Bolt and K Command. There's no red mana for any of this. I will go with Lightning Bolt here. Name the more mana efficient card. Not going to make an attack here. I will have to decide whether or not I am chump blocking or trying to trade. If I don't draw a removal spell, I do draw a removal spell. Nice. That means that I'm chump blocking. Ooh, opponent is not willing to attack. So, Palace Jailer. Junk the Goyf. Since I will still have 2 bodies left no matter what, I think I do go ahead and make my attack here. My opponent takes 5. I draw a card. Ancient Tomb is not what I'm looking for. I have 4 dead cards in hand, but my opponent has 3 dead cards in hand, and that is not helping them. That's not terrible. Send in. Opponent goes to 7. I'm going to not play another Ancient Tomb. Let's Mox Diamond, discard that. I can lower my own life total here. This is fine. So I will Anointed Peacekeeper from the Catacombs. That's really annoying here, because that can get my Palace Jailer. I'm going to name from the Catacombs. Then I will White Orchid Phantom. I'm not going to blow up my opponent's land because that can give them access to red. I will blow up my own land and just convert it into another basic plains. And draw a new card. Solitude is fantastic. This is a big brainstorm. This has to answer a lot of cards. And if my opponent is spending more cantrips here, I don't know that that can necessarily do that. This has been a very intricate game. I think my opponent has played well as a whole. So there's red mana. There is a Baleful Strix. And that is the concession. I haven't lost yet, right? Yeah, we are undefeated with this deck so far. Which is a thing. I don't know if we should expect that normally, but scoreboard. Alright, we don't have a play for turn 1, but I have very good plays for the rest of the game, assuming that Ancient Tomb is not wastelanded. This hand is quite good. Grindstone. We are playing against Painter. I think we have some really good tools for this matchup. Like, we could rip a Suppression Field, for example, and be very, very good off against a lot of the things my opponent's deck has to offer. But this will just be land go for this first turn cycle. Saga ticks up, and Ancient Tomb occurs. I think this is a time where I just immediately drop Anointed Peacekeeper. This is going to give me a lot of information. My opponent makes their Urza Saga Construct token in response. My opponent's hand is very bad. Very, very bad. So they could have a Lotus Petal that they can get to cast Chaos Defiler next turn. I could just name Urza Saga, make them not get that construct, make them use a Lotus Petal to cast Chaos Defiler, and then try to remove their creatures. I can also just name Urza Saga and make them get one construct token. Making them get one construct token is probably fine. It's also possible that they don't go for the Lotus Petal, in which case they don't have black for easy Chaos Defiler. Okay, it's Mox Opal instead of Lotus Petal. Same overall deal. This is fine. So I would like to set this up where I get to remain the Monarch easily. Not sure that I get to do that. I might need to play an awkward game for a few turns where I just end up chump blocking. Chaos Defilers is a die, notably. And then I'm just going to want to find another Palace Jailer, a Swords to Plowshares, a Solitude. There's going to be a lot of things I can find that just get me out of this spot. Otherwise, I can play some creatures and do some chump blocking. Disruptor Flute is fine. Opponent chooses Solitude. That's reasonable. Opponent's just going to make me chump block here. That is Solitude. So Solitude now costs 8 mana or 3+ pitch. It's probably 3+ pitch here. It's going to be Ancient Tomb damage, pitching an Archon. Yeah, I think either Solitude or Swords to Plowshares is the clear name for my opponent. And then we'll drop Suppression Field here, which makes the Grindstone, Urza Saga style things in my opponent's deck much worse. And then hopefully we just ride the Monarch to victory. I am at 9 life. That's a land. Big mana for a Fury. Hopefully I draw an answer to that. I can chump block it if I need to, but I would really prefer not to. So I have 6 mana. I can play both of these. That seems worth the life to do. I have to play Anointed Peacekeeper first. All right, what do I not want my opponent to play? Another Fury, honestly. I might just name that. Let's make a Fury more expensive. I will play Archon as my second spell. I'll draw an extra card. It's just a land. I have to chump block with one of these. I think I chump block with my Archon. I would like to multi-spell. There's the City of Traders played out. There's a new Anointed Peacekeeper. Sure, I will play it. It's Red Elemental Blast and Great Furnace. I think I am still very afraid of Fury. I think I am just going to name it again. What about Painter? Does Painter kill me? 2 mana plus 5 mana to activate. Yes, Painter currently kills me, but it won't with Suppression Field. Okay, just name Grindstone at this point. My opponent can't mill themselves. That seems like a reasonable thing to do. Now I will drop Suppression Field as my second spell for turn. We'll go to Punchies. I will send in. I'll draw my extra card. It is a Chrome Mox that does not do me any good. Opponent started playing a 3 mana thing and then stopped. I think I need to trade here. think it's very scary to continue to chump block this forever. So this will trade both of my creatures for one of my opponent's creatures, which hopefully is fine. Board's clear. It is Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Hopefully I draw something that answers this. Chrome Mox, that's not doing it. I can draw something at end step. Come on. Flagstones, that's not doing it. This is very bad. I can just draw another thing that makes me the Monarch next turn, but I think if my opponent goes through 1 or 2 turns where they get to draw the extra card, that I just lose handily. That's ignoring my life total. My opponent also now gets Chaos Defiler back. This is very bad. Just had 1 too many bricks. Oh fuck, it's Painter as well. Concede. My opponent just has the mana necessary to activate that one. GG. Okay, we have Stony Silence, we have Lauren, we have Solitude, we have Path to Exile. I could Surgical if I want. My cards are generally speaking quite good. I might go down on some artifact mana if I'm going to board in Stony Silence. I might cut both Mox Diamonds. Start that. Do I need Court of Grace? Maybe don't need Court of Grace. That gives me Lauren, Solitude, and I just don't play Path. That seems reasonable. I think I could also go down some number of Anointed Peacekeepers. I think I have a lot of redundancy on hating on my opponent's activated abilities. Awkward. With any mana source as the next card of my library, this is insane. It's just imprint, probably Archon on turn 1, attempt to play turn 2 Palace Jailer, and go wild. This is a very high risk, high reward hand, though. I think it is worth it. Sometimes this just massively blows up in my face, though. We'll see whether or not this is one of those times. Imprint, land. Notably, I do think it's Palace Jailer you keep and not something like Anointed Peacekeeper. Basic Mountain, that does not enter tapped. Goblin Welder, sure. Hey. This is why we kept the hand. This is what this is capable of doing. So now this is just a disgusting speed bump for my opponent, where I have Wasteland queued up to take out an ETB tapped land. I have removed one of their creatures. This is likely going to be tough to impossible to beat. Opponent has multiple basic mountains in their opener, though. That is great for them. Grindstone. Sure. Basic Plains is fine. Send it. Opponent is at 14. I will drop an Anointed Peacekeeper. So if they just have something like Painter that I want to answer immediately, they have a Fury. Fury does not kill more than one of my creatures here. Fury is the only thing that they can reasonably do on their own turn. I'm not overly concerned with Phyrexian Dragon Engine. It's just a 2/2 double striker. I think I will just be naming Fury. Now, Great Furnace notably enters tapped, and then I can Wasteland it. My opponent might still just pay 2 to Fury my Archon out of play or something. Pitching the Pyroblast that we do know about. Yep, alright, so it is the Archon. Opponent is not playing out their Great Furnace because I would just Wasteland it immediately. Which makes sense. I will hit my opponent for 5, bringing them to 9. Then I will White Orchid Phantom, my own land. We'll thin some plains out of the deck. Then I'll drop a Wasteland, draw my Monarch card. It's another creature. That's great. I would like to deal my opponent enough damage that the One Ring does not easily stabilize the board for them. Goblin Engineer. Sure. I can put a Painter into graveyard. That could put an Ensnaring Bridge into graveyard. It is Painter. And they are passing the turn. Ancient Tomb, not what I am looking for. I'll probably just turn that into a basic Plains. So send it. Opponent goes to 2. White Orchid Phantom. Blow up my Ancient Tomb. Again, take a little bit more land out of the deck. Be really cool to draw a removal spell. I did not. Alright, we win this one. Now we've got a game 3. When I'm on the draw, I can think about Surgical Extraction a little bit more. Some of that stuff, like Warhammer 40k red-black 5-drop that I'm blanking on the name of. Getting into play can be a problem, especially if my opponent can weld it in and out. And some things like my Archon and White Orchid Phantom become a little bit worse on the draw anyway. It kind of looks like my plan is mess with stuff in play, though. I don't know that I want to start targeting other zones. Also, I won that mull to 5. That feels good. This hand is perfectly fine. My opponent's on 6. My hand lines up well versus Urza Saga. I will plan on just wastelanding that in my opponent's upkeep, and we'll restart the game. But we're restarting the game where I am up an additional card because I have had a draw step, so this is fine. I will almost certainly end up Swords to Plowsharing, Goblin Welder. I should not need to do it at sorcery speed. I think I can let this lose Summoning Sickness without it being a big deal. When my opponent puts something else on the stack, it becomes a concern. The One Ring. I can mess with that in a minute. Let's Swords this Goblin Welder now. So my opponent will get a good number of cards out of this, but then hopefully my Anointed Peacekeeper kind of messes with their overall plans. I will convert their Ancient Tomb into a mountain. I believe that the mana is more important than the life as of right now. But the life does matter, especially if Anointed Peacekeeper just makes that ring sit in play. I don't know what this is. Legion Extruder. 2 damage to any target, sacrifice another artifact, make a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. I've never seen this card in my life. What fucking set symbol is this? I'm going to go look it up. It is from The Big Score, which I think is one of the Outlaws of Thunder Junction's alternative thingy-mabobbers. Let's Anointed Peacekeeper the One Ring. Pyrogoyf coming up. Understood. That's a little scary. Okay. Still going to name the One Ring. Just need to shut that off in the short term. And then hopefully I can use Palace Jailer to tilt this game back in my favor. Alright, they are just going to spend 2 mana to draw 3 cards, which is still a good use of resources. 2 to activate, 2 to activate. So then opponent can play Goblin Welder. They're playing Grindstone instead, which makes one of my Palace Jailers worse. Do I need to start drawing cards immediately, or do I just save these? Like, I know a Pyrogoyf is coming. There's maybe a Painter coming. Wasteland doesn't do anything. My opponent does not have more mana sources. I could take out Mox Opal. I think I like that. So play Lauren, take out Mox Opal, drop Wasteland, punch for 3, and try to just pressure my opponent's life total between the One Ring, Anointed Peacekeeper, and Lauren. These are both vigilant attackers. Pithing Needle resolves. The opponent can name my Wasteland and then play a non-basic land of some kind. So that's gone. There's the non-basic land. 3, 4, 5. So my opponent has 2 turns before they die to their own One Ring. I can answer Goblin Welder if they play it out this turn to attempt to weld out the One Ring. Opponent can sacrifice it to make a 3/3 golem. Legion Extruder is very awkward for me here, huh? Doesn't have a sorcery speed restriction on it or anything, does it? Nope. Card's kind of fucked up. Yeah, so they are leaving this open as a thing that they can do. Fuck yeah. I guess I want to leave Wasteland untapped here, huh? Fast Stony Silence is about to shut off this land, and this, and this, and this. All simultaneously. Alright, so they junk the One Ring. If I don't attack with this, I can just Palace Jailer it away next turn. I mean, this sort of unfair artifact stuff, is why I want to play the cards that I am playing. So the problem is there's multiple Pyroblasts here. So my Palace Jailer does not actually save me, because my opponent just gets rid of Stony Silence with 1, counters Palace Jailer with the other, and then activates Grindstone. I need more stuff. I need to draw a card. You and target opponent each draw a card. Like, I would love to draw Swords to Plowshares. Suppression Field. Okay, this is a start. We're not quite there yet. Let's draw another card. Anointed Peacekeeper. So my problem here is that I can't do 2 spells. My Chrome Mox is currently shut off. So I cast Anointed Peacekeeper. We see if my opponent responds by Pyroblasting a Stony Silence. Maybe my Chrome Mox gets turned back on, so Suppression Field is live. Okay, no, so they don't let that hit play. So then Chrome Mox is not live. Yeah, so my opponent is going to Pyroblast Stony Silence and then kill me. Fuck. Okay, we're trading. I'm going to do one of the biggest and most insane bluffs that I've ever done. We are going to Chrome Mox. We are going to imprint a card to make it look like I want more mana if my opponent gets rid of Stony Silence. And then pass the turn. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm trying to make it look like I have more interaction than I do so that my opponent does not just try to kill me. Okay. Land drop. All right, now yep. That'll do. Streak is broken. We're now 3-1. This is an awkward hand. I have 5 mana, but I don't have white, and I only have white creatures. I'm not willing to keep this on 7. This is an okay hand. Hopefully Suppression Field does something meaningful. Like, if Suppression Field slows down my opponent just a tiny bit so that I can stick a Palace Jailer, like, huge thumbs up. Opponent is pondering. This is a land that is often seen out of Nadu decks, so, you know, maybe our Suppression Field will do the anti-Nadu things that we imagined them doing. Here we go. Eh? We're going to give the opponent a smiley face in chat for that one. We just got the response of gross. Yeah, we're doing it. I am fully willing to play Naked Palace Jailer into a Daze or something here. This is very strong if it resolves, and Suppression Field resolved, and that is a card that I think my opponent would be willing to counterspell. Yeah. Now we have what is hopefully going to be a large snowballing advantage. Ooh. Oh, there's a brainstorm. Would you like to fetch after your brains? I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. This is what Suppression Field is here to do. Notably, I think if you have Brainstorm, you cast Brainstorm with Palace Jailer on the stack so that if you hit a Force of Will, you can Force of Will Palace Jailer and not let me just be the pretty princess all day. Ooh, Court of Grace. Nice. Are you dead? You're dead. Suppression Field confirmed. Good. I am unsure if I am going to sideboard any cards given how few cards I actually saw from my opponent here. Like, we saw Misty Rainforest and Brainstorm, basically. I don't know how to value my sideboard cards. Like, there are multiple decks that play Tropical Island. There are multiple Nadu decks, even, that play Tropical Island. So, you know, I think I'm just going to run back the main deck. I think Court of Grace is likely my weakest card here. But if my opponent is playing, say, a slower Uro control deck list, that's not actually true anymore. My hand is medium. I don't know that I'm going to mulligan, but this is not anywhere near as strong as my previous game. My previous hand, rather. I think this is fine. I don't think it's good. I think it's fine. It becomes good if Wasteland is live on turn 1. My opponent is on 6 basic planes. Okay, so we are playing against Bant Nadu. My hand is slow in that case. Sorry, using a technical term more accurately, we are playing against a Bant Nadu deck. Specifically, we are playing against Cephalid Breakfast. So I'm going to let my opponent mill themselves just so I can see their deck, and then I will be conceding. All right, so it looks like my opponent does have both Shuko and Nomads in core. They do have Urza's Saga, and they do have Dread Return for Thassa's Oracle, as well as Memory's Journey to maybe mess with some stuff. I'm going to take a quick screenshot so I have that, and then I will unseed. I'm not going to make my... Oh, well, they just killed me. That's fine. Okay, so I know my opponent is playing... I know the specific version that my opponent is playing now. So I think my Court of Graces just don't matter. I also think Palace Jailer is pretty slow. I think I just want to, like, not lose and get to the point where I can do Suppression Field and land destruction stuff. I think that means I do want Surgicals. I think that means I want the extra removal. And we can just get faster than Palace Jailer. I could Stony Silence. Stony Silence hits exactly 2 copies of Shuko, though. I don't know if that is enough. I could Lauren. Lauren hits 2 more cards. Lauren also hits Urza's Saga. I mean, that just makes my deck faster. Do I need 4 Surgicals? Not really. Do I need 2 Laurens, though? The answer there is also probably not really. It doesn't hit that many things. All right. I could maybe cut a piece of fast mana or two, given how many 4-drops I have boarded down. But the fast mana lets me play Suppression Field ASAP, and there is something to like about that. So this hand breaks one of my normal rules. It's a lock piece hand that does not have a follow-up threat, but it has 4 relevant pieces of interaction. I don't think I want to get rid of it here. I think I play Suppression Field immediately rather than Wasteland my opponent. The sooner I get Suppression Field down... let me rephrase this. The earlier in a game I play Suppression Field, the fewer lands my opponent gets to produce via fetch lands. So I can maybe shut off a fetch land this turn, and then Wasteland this next turn, without my opponent actually having the mana to ever crack that fetch land. The downside is when my opponent just goes an untapped land here and then Prismatic Endings this away like they just did. That is incredibly awkward for me. But I think the earlier you play that card, the better. And here I will just knock my opponent off of cantripping. There's a Nomads. I don't think I answered that immediately. White Orchid Phantom. I don't want to give my opponent blue mana. Yeah, no, I'm going to junk my own land here. I don't want to turn on Daze. I want to turn on Brainstorm, Ponder, Cephalid Illusionist, Nadu. Well, not Nadu, that would require another land beyond this. Again, target my own land. We have gotten the oh baby from the opponent. They like the spice. 4 Snow-Covered Plains. What's sexier than that? Nothing. There's a Ponder. And opponent's passing the turn. They started to pay for something. They might have another Nomads in core. They might have Swords to Plowshares. Not interested in Chrome Mox. Send in. Opponent is at 18. There's a new land. Oh, cool. It's just Ponder. It's not Nadu immediately. No attack. I do not want additional lands. We've boarded out a lot of our 4-drops here. I'll just be crashing in for 2. I don't think I'm going to play this Ancient Tomb. Like, it is past the point of being realistically usable mana. It's Brainstorm. And then a fetch to clear. Is it Nadu time? Nope, we're still cantripping. We're just chilling. God damn it, Ancient Tomb. Send in for 2. Opponent's at 12. Yeah, I think if I stay in this sideboard configuration... Alright, it's Nadu. So I probably need 2 Swords to Plowshares Nomads in core with this on the stack. So yeah. Force of Will, pitching, Force of Will. Okay. So unfortunately, my Surgical Extractions do not interact with this combo. So that stuff now resolves. My opponent gets to start doing their thing. They found Shuko, and they're going to get a few more activations here. With the end result that they have drawn Memory's Journey and made some additional land drops. Memory's Journey is actually a little annoying if I have double Surgical here. Yeah, you can Shuko. Now my opponent just gets more activations, unfortunately. And then there's Cephalid Illusionist, which I can maybe mess with. There's Swords, sure. So I think the way for me to win here is that I end up surgically extracting Force of Will, and then I do something meaningful. Or alternatively, my opponent goes for Cephalid Illusionist combo out of laziness, and then my double Surgical Extraction just gets them. That sounds kind of cool. Well, let's blow up Urza's Saga. I can Surgical Extraction Force of Will right now, or I can wait. I extract it right now. I think that's worth it. Oh no, there's a fucking Memory's Journey that they hardcast. It was a fuck up. Yeah, I think I just punted the game by doing that then. Now my opponent can just Cephalid Illusionist combo me. I think I'm going to bow my head out on that mistake and just call it a 3-2 league. I think I am fine with that overall. All right, so we have 2 different things that I want to talk about. 1 is the deck, and 2 is Legacy overall. This is my first league post bans of Psychic Frog and Vexing Bauble. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Not bad. This was definitely better than what I played last time. It definitely feels missing in selection. You don't have something like Fable of the Mirror Breaker that you can use to loot away the cards that you don't want to draw. You need to be playing roughly, 30 mana sources if you want to play a deck that looks like this one with this many 4-drops. Honestly, the deck should probably just drop Court of Grace Palace Jailer, play the One Ring, just play the busted card rather than the weaker Monarch card. Just should be playing the One Ring and then like some Seasoned Dungeoneers or some other 3-drop or something. There is something to this here in terms of an F&M level deck. This was a lot of fun to play. Suppression Field did some work. Not enough, though. We did still lose to the Nadu deck. Generally speaking, I'm gonna give this one a thumbs up. I don't think it is fully there yet. Maybe you can still go down a mana source or two from where this is at. You can probably improve it with the One Ring. But this was a lot of fun to play. So let's talk about some initial legacy impressions. Sample size 5 matches. These were fun matches to play. Decisions felt like they were relatively relevant and mattered. Nadu still feels incredibly strong. I do think that Nadu is going to prove problematic for Legacy and likely get itself banned in March. The blue-black decks definitely felt a peg slower and less resilient than they were previously. Initial impressions are that things are definitely better. I don't know that we are too healthy yet in any capacity. Was this the league where I got Selling Microspawned like 3 times in a turn cycle or 2? Or was that something else that I already recorded? I don't think that was Modern. I think that was this league. In which case, that was perhaps unhealthy as well. People have been saying that something from that Eldrazi shell probably needs to go because it is capable of just some absurdly punishing lines, especially for control decks, which have been pushed out of the format. But generally speaking, I'm going to try to be hopeful and positive in the coming weeks. Let me know down in the comments below what you kind of thought of the league and the format as it stands right now. Many of you might have played a week worth of matches by the time this video goes live, and if you need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU will save you a little bit on your order. All right, have a great rest of the day, folks. See ya!